Hi there, I'm Scott Lang from the Infrastructure Health and Safety Association. I'm a health and safety consultant here to talk today about hierarchy of controls. Fall protection asks us to look at the hierarchy of controls, and what we want to start with is our list here of 6. Number 1 being first and foremost, can we eliminate the hazard altogether? Can we bring it down to the ground, raise it into position? Do we actually need the worker to go up and work at heights? And sometimes we can, through engineering processes or the process of elimination, reduce that risk and take it down to 0. So I always want to start with that. Then we get to the next number 2. Can we put a path? So we go at the source, along the path, at the worker. So guardrails and covers are typically considered along the path. You build the guardrail as per the specifications in the regulation. That allows the worker to get close to the edge, but has a physical barrier preventing them from going through it. Obviously, it's based on the premise that it has to be a complete guardrail with a toe board, a mid-rail, and a top rail. With a cover, there's 5 key things that we look to do with a cover. 1, it has to be labeled. 2, fully cover the hole. 3, it has to be secured, fastened, either nailed down or screwed down, or basically so it cannot be moved. It should basically support 50 pounds per square foot, or as a minimum, the forces that would be applied to it. At the next step, when we know we can't use a guardrail along the path, we'd switch to travel restraint. And travel restraint puts the worker close enough to get to the edge, but never fall over it. And this is a key area that we want to make sure that we don't have ourselves in the position where we can actually go over the edge. So travel restraint in a position where you can work the edge, but you can't physically fall over it. This is really important, and it revolves around you making sure that you have the right setup and that you're adjusting your systems accordingly as you progress through your work. Now, when we can't use travel restraint, we can get into fall restriction. This is typically when climbing a ladder, a satellite tower, a water tower, a turbine, utility type work, where we're in a position that if we slip or trip and fall, we're only going to go a maximum distance of 0.6 meters. This is a very unique way to protect from a fall and is only reserved for a number of key applications. So then we finally get to fall arrest and safety net. And fall arrest is where we put the worker in a position where we know they can fall, and this brings about a number of additional things that we have to consider. 1, our anchor point. So do we have a suitable anchor that if it is suspended and subject to a fall, the worker will actually stop from hitting the ground and won't tear it out. We then have to have our harness, our lanyard, our lifeline, our rope grab. We could be using a self-retracting lanyard, but in the ideas of fall arrest systems, we have to check all the components and make sure that we do know the worker's fall will be arrested. That's the idea of a fall arrest system, is stopping us from hitting the ground. Really important. And depending on the nature of your situation, you do have to take into account fall arrest distances, clearance distances, the equipment itself. You should be given site-specific training, which we'll talk about in another video, on your fall protection equipment. Very important for the supervisor and the employer to go over these key aspects, referring the manufacturer's instructions. And when we can't do the fall arrest, we can reserve ourselves for a safety net. We see this application bridge work, and in these applications, the design of the safety net has to be engineered per the drawing. It has to be stamped and set up accordingly. One of the key things that I want you all to remember is as we go down the list from our number 1, eliminate the hazard, to 6, we are reducing the level of protection afforded to the worker. So it's very important to, when we consider our different levels of fall protection, this number 1 offers the most and safest aspect, and as we drop down, when we're getting to a worker having their fall arrested, there's many aspects that reduce the amount of protection. Ideally, if it's set up correctly, it'll stop the worker from hitting the ground, but it does bring in different aspects like a rescue plan. They are going to be subject to forces. We have to think about developing orthostatic intolerance because they're hanging in their harness. So there's various aspects. So one key thing, don't forget, when we get up the top, highest level of protection, obviously the hierarchy of controls, and as we get down to the bottom, affording our least amount of protection for the worker. So I want to thank you for going through the hierarchy of controls I'm Scott Lang, your health and safety consultant. Work safe for life. And please visit us at IHSA's website, www.ihsa.ca. Thank you.